Recent one.
Huh?
It is definitely
It
showing
has
growth.
come now. Are you able to see anything? Are you able to see something?
The new one isn't coming for me.
Huh?
The new one isn't coming for me. It's just these old ones.
That's the old one.
Yes.
It should be there. This place is something else. Oh, it's not connected this one. Right here, okay.
It's coming in from.
That's the one I'm searching. Try to go down. Nothing.
Nothing.
Ah, this is something else. Ah, what kind of massage? There's nothing. It's here.
I've gone on your page, like I've subscribed on your page, there's nothing there. The last thing that is there is the one that you
But
do.
I'm able to see it. Why are you failing? You people. So you give me a lot of headache. We can't see. We can't do it. Hmm? So you give me. Hmm?
Is there the same thing that is there though?
Are you able to see? We can't see. We can't do it. Hmm? I'm able to see. So it's supposed to go down. The recent one, you'll see it. The network is very bad. Thank you, people. People. So you type as streaming.
Streaming.
And go down. Hmm? I don't know what to say. You're able to check now, right?
You just send them the link.
Put the link.
I'm sending them the link.
I'm able to see. So support. So I want to do at least an intro just to make sure that everyone is seeing and give you the background. Just to go down. These things, they are locked like this. How does it open up here? Just coming up. You type a message there. You type a message there so that I'm able to see. Nothing.
Okay.
Huh?
Okay, I'm taking.
Okay. Let's type something. Hi. I need to check. Bring her open. Laptop. You've managed.
Yes, sir.
Huh?
But another one is
Are they connecting? Huh?
it should.
There's only you here.
I'm telling him to type when you get in that side.
Not even one has entered.
That means Andrew, Nigeria, that they are in. In Turkey.
Even Patrick.
Yes. He's even in
Huh?
He's even this side.
It's still showing two people. On. Huh?
Good afternoon.
Is this class?
Yeah, I think class is Dr. Ma.
You're with the
Yes.
and you're alone.
He's coming.
I mean, you're alone.
Yes, I'm alone.
Still.
Alice is in. Also, Thomas is in.
Okay. Yeah, I can see Alice, I can see Patrick, I can see Nigel. Wow, only 3? Okay. So I wish to welcome everyone. We need to just have an intro, then we can agree on when we can have a makeup this week. Is this Lucio? That is Andrew. Okay, that's fine. Okay, first thing first. Number one, I want to mention that the other 2 courses that you are supposed to do, will be taken by part-time lecturers, and that should be, I think, digital electronics, right? Digital electronics, as well as which other course is this? You are doing digital electronics and what? So you have digital electronics, you have this computational, you have the maths, then you have statistical mechanics. So these 2 will be taken by 2 guys. Each one will take you in 1 course, and one is arriving today. So it's just a matter of giving them the timetable, and then from there you can make contacts. All right. So in this course, like I mentioned earlier on, we all need to have computers. It's very important to have, each one of us should have a computer. So this will make our work so easy. It was going to be a little bit easier for some of us who don't have the laptops if we were here in school, but now we are home. So that means it's each one for himself or herself. So we need to have the computers. We need also to peruse through and check, acquaint ourselves with some few elements of C programming, just to read through, because entirely in this program we are going to look at C programming, and that will be the end of the course. So first of all, I need to mention about the structure. So the first thing that we need to look at is we are going to look at the labs, which I've already given the, okay, I can see, is it Mwiza? You've just joined, you are welcome. All right, so the first thing I want to just clarify is the labs. So in the labs, which we already have the manual, you have 15 of them. So these 15 labs will constitute the labs, and I think that is that. Then we will have the quizzes. Then we are going to have the tests. Of course, this is test 1 and test 2. We have to set the dates for that. And then we have the final exam. So on the labs, like I've mentioned, I need to receive the first lab this Friday, which we are supposed to do, but Friday is a holiday, so I'll need it next week on Monday. That is lab 1 and lab 2. I said we'll be doing 2 per week. So lab 1 and lab 2 must be submitted on Monday. How are we going to submit these labs? We do the programming. After we finish our programming, then we convert these documents into PDF. Then you email. So the email that you are going to use, or the easiest way is to send them via WhatsApp. That will be the easiest way. You have my line. You just send these PDF documents via WhatsApp. Then I'll be able to do that. Okay. So that is about the labs. We have 15 of them, and all the 15 we have to do them. So we are doing 2 each week, and we have to make those submissions every Friday. So we are submitting on Monday, lab 1 and 2. That same Friday of next week, we should submit lab 3 and 4. Okay? Yeah. So these labs will constitute at least 20% of the CA. So those are the labs. Then we will have the test 1 and test 2 that will also constitute 20%. And then these will be, of course, test 1 is 10% and test 2 is 10%. Then we'll have, that gives us a 40. So we'll have the quizzes. The quizzes will be at 10%. So that makes it 50. And the final exam will be 50%. Okay, I think that is clear. If you are not able to hear me clearly where you are, please just indicate by typing a message to say I'm not getting you too well. And we'll be able to see what we can adjust so that we are able to communicate. So that is it that I wanted to mention about the sessions. Then the other thing that we need to take into account Then test 2, we'll have it when you are in school, and that will be somewhere 20th of April. 20th of April. Then, of course, the exam. We'll have the exam on 11th of June. Okay. So just put those on your calendar and you tick them nicely. I've said test 1 will have it on the 30th of March. Then test 2 will be on the 20th of April by the time you are into school. Then the final exam will have it on the 11th of June, the Friday of the first week of exams. So that will be the Friday of the first week of exams. That's when you write your exam. Okay, so you put that on your calendar. So we have the test 1 date, the test 2 date, and the final exam date set. Okay, that is it. Then I've mentioned about the labs that they have to be sent in PDF form. You send them in PDF form. Okay. Right. So the quizzes, of course, we'll be having them at random. We will not really put the dates for the quizzes, but at least we may be having one or so every 2 weeks. So that is important. Right. To our notes, I think I have sent you the notes, so we can easily open the notes. I don't have the camera today. I would have wished you could see the board, but for today I will not do so much because of the camera that is nowhere to be seen, but we are going to look for it so that in our makeup lecture I'll be able to teach from the board. Right. So basically, like I've mentioned, in this course we are going to look specifically on C programming, like the course has alluded to, the title of the course. So basically we are going to get into the basics of C programming and then get to understand the importance of this in the physics that we are doing. So it's very important as a physicist to understand the aspects of programming. Programming is not just for IT or IT students or ICT students, or those that are doing computer science. No, it's actually important even for us as physicists to understand the language of the computer. So in this C programming, what we learn is actually to understand computer programming, also to understand the language that computers use, because they don't use the language that we use. Computers don't use this language that we are using. So we need to understand to say, what is this language that the computers use? And how do we get to learn about it? How do we input information in the computer, and how do we get our output? How do we program if we want to do a certain mathematical derivation? How do we push it in the computer for the computer to work it out for us? So this is what is important. So like I've mentioned, we'll look at the basics of C programming, but this is not just the only kind of programming that is there. But at this stage, it's important that we get to C, and the moment we get the basics of C programming, we are able to actually learn the other programming systems. For example, we have we have Python, we have Java. Of course, maybe we have heard about this. We have all sorts of, we have C++ and all that. So after we have done the basics of C programming, it's a little bit easier for us to learn other languages or other programming or other programs, so to say, in the programming. So basically, like I've mentioned, it's important to underline the fact that in this course, we are going to look at the basics of C programming, the basics of C programming, and how we can come up with some programs given a situation. Are we able to program it? Given a task, are we able to program it? And we are supposed not only to program on the computer, we should also learn how to write programs by hand, so that when we input them in the computer, we are able to understand, or the computer is able to give us the feedback that we want. So this is important, because even in a test or an exam, I'll be able to ask you to actually write a program by hand. So we have to be able to write these programs. We have to know how to write, what comes where, what is the meaning of this, what is the meaning of that. So we are going to get into details to understand the meaning of each basic programming language in order for us to combine them to come up with a program. Okay, so the first basic question that we want to ask ourselves is, what is C? What is C? If you look at your notes, that is page 2. So what is C? So in other words, this is just a programming language. So C is just a computer programming language, in short. So when you're asked to say what is C programming, this is just a computer programming language that is so basic, that is, of course, other programming languages are a bit simpler, but when we learn the basics from C, we are able to get to know the other programs so easily. Okay, so first of all, we want to look at the simplest C program. Okay, the simplest C program, if we go to our notes there on page 2, we are looking at the simplest C program. So, okay, in order for us to understand the basics, first of all, we need to know what we mean by saying, of course, if you look at the first program that we have there, we have been given to say, the first thing that you need to do is, there is a star at the beginning there. Then there is include. You have studio.h in there. That, the meaning of that, we have to explain. What are we trying to say by that when we are trying to say, okay, you are trying to input that in the computer? What are you telling the computer to do? Then from there you have int main, which is the void. Then you open the brackets there. Then from there you say printf. So this is where you say printf. That is the output. The moment you put in your program to say printf, this is the output from my first program. So this gives you what you want to get at the end of that program. So the program, you're asking the computer to print what you've done prior to that printf, and then you return 0. So it means that we shouldn't have, the moment you click the program to run, you shouldn't have any errors that are showing down there. Okay. Programming, spacing, and the spacing that we put in between what we program is very, very important. So when we enter a program, the position that we start with star include. So we are saying that the position star include, so we have to position this star include so that the pound sign, the first sign that we have as a pound sign, is in column 1. So the first thing that we put there must be in column 1 to the left side. the far left side. Otherwise, the spacing and the indentation can be any way you like it to be. So the first thing that we need to put is that this pound sign and include must be on the far left and it must be on the first column. That is what we start is the compilation and how to run the program. So when we are compiling the program and how to run it, first of all, when we are executing the program, the first thing that the program that we have written is doing is giving instruction to the computer to print out program. The first thing that the program that we have written is doing is giving instruction to the computer to print out the line. Okay, this output, so this is output from my first program. If we go back to our simple program that is starting on page 2, coming all the way to page 3, what we see is that where it's written to our simple program that is starting on page 2, coming all the way to page 3, what we see is that where it's written printf, this is what we are able to see from the output. The output, which is the screen that comes on our computers. So you have asked the program to do what you've instructed it to do. At the end of the day, it should print this on the output. So we are saying this is the output from my first program. That should come out under printf. What appears there is what should appear on the output. So this is, of course, like if you look at the compilation and how to run the program, the one that appears under printf is what is able to be seen on the output. So from there now, from this, we have said we should return 0. That is the end of the program. So from here, the program must quit and it should end here. So to compile this code on, of course, we are not going to talk about the Linux and other things because our emphasis is to work on Windows, not to work in Linux and other things. So that one, we don't need to go that far. The second example. Under the second example, we have the pound sign, and we have said include studio H, then int main void. So we have to open. When the moment we open and we close, what is, when we open, what we get from there? What we get from when we open is what is exactly what we want that program to actually print on the output. Then we return 0. After that, we have to close. The moment you forget to close, it's a problem because the program will have to quit. If the program doesn't end, it may end up giving a lot of errors or ending up in loops, which we are going to look at as we look at the loops in programming. So the points that we want to stress on this example number 2, which is on the 4th page of our notes, is that the first thing we want to mention is that this C program starts with the compound, that is the pound sign includes studio. This line includes the standard input. So this is very crucial. When you put the sign, you put the pound sign and say include. Then in those brackets, we put studio.h. So what do we mean by this statement in our program? This statement means that this line includes the standard input or output library. So we are actually going to fetch from the library what we want to input or output. So this is in our program. So the standard input or output library lets you to read your input from the key. So we are able to see what we are inputting as we are trying to type the program on the computer. Then at the end of the day, when we run that program, we are able to see what is the input on the same computer that we have. Yes. Then if we look at the second line is int main, in brackets we have void. So this in the programs. So here we are actually making a declaration. First of all, the first line we are looking at we are actually including the standard input and the output from our library. The second thing, now we are making our declarations. So here, the second line is int main void. So here, we actually process the text file store on the disk and so on. So this is a very important step, and this helps to search the library for what we are looking for. Okay, so under C programming that we are looking at specifically in this course, there are a lot of libraries that we can use. For example, we have Studio, we have including string, we have time and math libraries. So you have a lot of libraries in C programming. So this is the one that we have. If our computers don't have C programming, it's very important we download that and put it on our computers. It's very, very important. Okay. Then the next point that I want to stress is that every C program that we are trying to come up with must have a function which is named main. That must be a function named main somewhere in the code. What do we mean by code? The code is this program that we are putting across, right? The whole chain is what is called the code. So we have to have the main somewhere in the code. So we have this main. We'll learn more about it when we start differentiating these functions, the main function, and also these other segments of a program. We are going to explain them. We are going to learn them in details and what they do. Okay. The next line that I want to explain is where we open the bracket. You see that line? Yes. So what does that mean? The next point is where you have the CD, where you are opening and closing these symbols. Put in a program, they mark. When we open, that is the beginning of the code. When we close, that is the end of the code that we are putting in a computer to run the program. Okay, so if you look at our example, the program that we have there, how many lines do we have in this code, the open and closed? We only have 2 lines. The first line is the printf, where it says this. So you have to print, this is output from my first program. Then you have return 0. So we have 2 lines in our code. Then the other thing that we need to understand from this example, the program that we've given ourselves, is the statement that starts just after the open bracket. The first statement that we have there is printf. So the printf, that is a statement. What does this do in a C program? Printf, this statement in C allows you to send output to standard out. Okay? I hope that is clear. The printf is the one that allows us now to send the output to the standard what? Out. In order for us now to get the output, this is the function or the statement that allows us to send this to the output, which we are able now to see. Okay. Then the last line is where it's written return 0. Why are we saying return 0? Are we looking for the 0? Are we looking for, what are we looking for when we say return 0 in our code before we close? Because we have opened in our simple program, we've said printf, and you want what is in the brackets there to appear on the output, then the next statement is return 0. What does this statement mean to us? The statement here, this line actually causes the function to return an error code of 0. In other words, we want this program to just return an error code of 0. It shouldn't return, any other errors unless we have not programmed well. Unless we've not done our program well, unless there's somewhere where we have misfired in our coding. So otherwise, the program must return 0. And this returning of 0, it means that it shouldn't return any other errors apart from the error code of 0. What does that mean in programming the error code of 0? The error code of 0 means no error, in other words. So you are instructing the computer to return no errors if the program is okay. All right. Okay, so under C programming, there is what are called variables. We'll start from there. And we'll end from there. Today is just an intro. So variables. What are variables? In C programming, there are what are called variables. So as a programmer, of course, you have a lot of these. A lot of these variables, we are going to use them in our programming. In other words, when you are programming, you want your program to remember something. Or you want your program to remember a value. That's why we are saying these are variable. These are variables. In mathematics, we have learned about the variables. In physics, we do learn about the variables. Even here in programming, they are what are called variables. These are the variables that carry a value. For example, if you say A plus B or A plus B is equal to C, we are using variables. We don't know what the value of A is. We don't know what the value of B is. We don't know what the value of C is. These that we are using are variables. But after you've done that in your program, then now you can assign values to these. You can say A is equal to 1, B is equal to 2, or C is equal to 3. So you have assigned the variables now to the values. In other words, these variables, like the first statement says it clearly, these are actually the ones that to remember a value. So when we say A in our program, because we know that A is equal to 1, the program will pick 1 where there is A and then add it to something that you want to add. Okay. All right. So, for example, if we say int b, the line says, I want to create a space, right? When you say in your program that int b, what are you trying to do? You are trying to create a space for b that is able to hold an integer. In other words, you are introducing a variable b that is able to hold a value. For example, if you say b is equal to 5, it means that that program will hold that value, the variable will hold that value of what? Of b to be equal to 5. Okay, now look at what we have been given there. We've introduced a variable which is b, but we don't know what b is. So what this line says is that you want to create a space which is called b in your program. That space must be able to hold one integer value. As a variable has a name, in this case, our variable that we are using is actually b. And a type in this case. So the types, we are going to look at what this means as type. In this case, we are using int. That is an integer. So the moment you see int in the program, what that means is that this is an integer. So we are saying int b, that means integer b. So b is a variable, and that variable that is represented by b must be an integer, right? So that is int, which is an integer. So you can now store, when we have said in our program int b, we have introduced an integer which with a variable b. Now we can store a value in b by saying something like, after that we can say now b is equal to 5, or b is equal to 2, b is equal to whichever integer that you are going to assign to b. So you can use the value in b by saying something like this. Instead of going back to b is equal to 5, or all the time writing that b is equal to 5, you can now say printf. You have those in brackets where you have the percentage d, of course. So percentage d, then you have b. What does that mean? What you are now doing is that you are now assigning, right? You are now assigning the b, because firstly you have introduced the variable b, which is an integer. Then now you are assigning that b is equal to 5, and then now we want the program to be picking that. You don't need to be repeating that b is equal to 5 all the time. So you want their program to go and pick that b, which is already equal to 5. So the program is able to pick the b, and you've already told the computer that this b, the variable b, is an integer, and you've assigned this integer to be equal to 5. So the program is able to pick that and add it to whatever you want to add it to. Okay. It's important to mention that in C programming, there are actually several standard types of variables. So these variables are actually int, which is an integer. Of course, here these are whole numbers, right? You have what is called a float. At times you see this in the program. What does it mean? These are floating point values. We are going to discuss more about these as we break down each one of these. So there is what is called the char, that is CHAR. So this is a single character value, such as M or Z. So this is character. So from the word character, they've just picked CHAR. So the moment you see that in a program, this is referring to a character. The moment you see a float, this is a floating value, a floating point value. The moment you see int, which is int, that is an integer that we are talking about. So we will see most of these examples as we move on. All right. Okay. I think we are going to pick it up from the next chapter, which is chapter 2. And this looks at input and output. Like I mentioned when we started, your input is the key, the keyboard. You are pushing in your input. You are giving instructions to your computer. You are telling the computer what you want it to do. For example, you have a mathematical problem. You can just create a program to solve that problem, and the computer will easily give you the solution to that. So that is the input. In the chapter 2, we are specifically looking at input and output. So we are comparing what we input and what should come out of our output. That is our screen, so to say. That is, the output is our screen where we are able to see the results from the program. And then our input is where we want to instruct the computer to actually do something. So we are typing, that's the keyboard. And then we have now to check what we are typing to what is coming out. Because even if you are using a calculator, you punch in wrong figures, it will give you a wrong solution. So it's the same with programming. It doesn't mean that the computer will correct us. The computer will just give us errors to correct us on how we're supposed to do the programming. But most of the work, we have to know what we want the computer to bring forth. So end here for today. Thank you so much. And I wish to mention that on Thursday, we have to find time to have a makeup on Thursday. On Thursday, most likely at 14 hours, because we missed class yesterday. It was holiday, so we have to make up for that class. All right. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye. Okay? We'll end here.